Yo, what's up guys, Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. An upset in the heavyweight division. Zhilei Zhang defeats Joyce by a 6th round stoppage. And I have to say, he dominated this fight from start to finish. This was a dominant performance by Zhilei Zhang. Where do I start with this one? Going in, I felt this fight was a risky fight for Joyce, but a fight in which Joyce would win. I kind of thought that early on Joyce would have some tricky moments with Zhilei Zhang. You know, Zhang being a southpaw who can hit hard. I felt he would get caught early on, like he usually does, but then eventually come through and secure a mid-round stoppage. But that wasn't the case in this fight. Zhilei Zhang took advantage of the slow start from Joyce. As we know, Joyce in a lot of his fights does start slowly. Zhilei Zhang really took advantage of that in this bout. Right from round 1, Zhilei Zhang came out in that southpaw stance. He got his jab firing. Joyce was coming in square. And you know, Joe was kind of pity-patting with Zhilei Zhang early on, kind of seeing what was in front of him. Whereas Zhilei Zhang came out in this fight very quickly. He got his jab going out of that southpaw stance, and he lined Joyce up with his straight left hand, catching Joyce repeatedly with a straight right hand, also throwing the right hook behind it, which caught Joyce a couple of times in round 1. Zhilei Zhang landed all the good shots in round 1. Joyce landed some pity-patter shots, but nothing of any consequence. And right in round 1, you could see that the power of Zhilei Zhang was real. I mean, right after round 1 and during round 1, you could see that Joyce's right eye was beginning to swell. And he also busted Joyce's nose in round 1. So immediately, you could tell that the power of Zhilei Zhang was a factor. And that was also evident in round 2. Once again, Joyce came out looking lethargic. His guard was way too wide, coming in square, that sort of thing. And Zhilei Zhang really did what he was doing in round 1, measuring Joyce behind that quick jab or the pouring jab, and coming down the middle with his southpaw left hand, straight left hand. Round 2, Joyce was momentarily buzzed by Zhilei Zhang. After a couple of left hands, once again as well, the right hook was coming into play from Zhilei Zhang. And once again, you could see the damage on Joyce's face getting worse second by second. After round 2, Joyce, you know, it was a terrible start by Joyce. After round 2, it looked like he tried to up his work rate. He tried to get closer to Zhilei Zhang at times, which was a good idea, trying to smother the power of Zhilei Zhang. And when he got close, he managed to work some good body shots on Zhilei Zhang. But to be fair to Zhilei Zhang, he actually did quite a good job at blocking some of the body shots. He also displayed a pretty good guard in this fight, a good active guard, which was blocking a lot of headshots that were coming from Joyce. Zhilei Zhang's defense in this fight, just in terms of his guard, was as good as I've seen it, to be honest. So defensively, Zhilei Zhang showed improvements in this fight, quite frankly. But yeah, rounds 3 and 4, they were more competitive. Joyce upped the work rate, definitely. Mostly, or well, for the most part, his shots would get through to the body. Sometimes he'd land the quick, like a 1-2 or a hook round the side. But nothing super flush. Occasionally, Joyce would load up with an overhand right, like a looping overhand right. That would occasionally catch Zhilei Zhang, but, you know, they weren't shots that were troubling Zhilei Zhang. So yeah, Joyce made rounds 3 and 4 competitive, and maybe he outworked Zhilei Zhang, but the quality of punches coming from Zhang were far better and far harder, causing much more damage. So, you know, I saw a couple of guys on BT gave rounds 3 and 4 to Joyce. I would personally give them to Zhilei Zhang because of the damage, because of the quality of shots. That's how I would have it, but that is what it is. And after round 4, I felt the writing was on the wall for Joyce. His eye basically become a splint. His nose was busted, his eye was just really badly bruised and closed up. So at that point in time, I felt the fight was... It was just a matter of time before the referee jumped in to stop it, or Zhilei Zhang would land one too many shots and he would knock out Joyce. I think it was at the end of round 4 where one of Joyce's cornermen asked Joe whether he could see out of his right eye, and Joe didn't respond, so those were obviously worrying signs. Joyce came out in round 5. He actually might have won round 5, to be honest, because Zhilei Zhang's output in round 5 did drop significantly, I would say. Don't get me wrong, he still looked super comfortable, he still looked in full control, but he allowed Joyce to work and land more shots. And even in round 5, when Zhilei Zhang did throw, he landed the better shots, but for me his work rate wasn't quite there in round 5. So just based on work rate alone, I gave that round to Joyce. Joyce tried to get close to Zhilei Zhang and work on the inside, work the body. But again, scuffing shots, not shots with any real conviction or power that would cause Zhilei Zhang any trouble. And round 6 was where the fight ended. Before round 6, the referee Howard Foster had the doctor inspect Joyce. The doctor had a good look. He asked Joyce how many fingers he was holding up. Joyce responded, and the doctor allowed it to continue. Joyce gets back in there, and Zhilei Zhang has good success in round 6. He once again picked up the pace, and he was just doing what he was doing throughout this fight. 1-2, southpaw right hook, rinse and repeat. And occasionally he would mix in the right uppercut as well, out of that southpaw stance. And he landed a couple of, 2 or 3 straight left hands in a row on Joyce, unanswered, hard shots. The referee then stopped the action, took Joyce back to the doctor. The doctor then re-inspected Joyce. Once again, the doctor asked Joyce how many fingers he was holding up. Joyce responded, and it sounded, from what I was hearing, in fact he got his answers right, but the doctor then advised the referee to call it off. I'm assuming that's what happened, unless the referee took it into his own hands. But yeah, the fight was stopped in round 6, and Zhilei Zhang becomes the new WBO interim heavyweight champion. Big win for Zhilei Zhang. I have to say, the last 2 fights that Zhilei Zhang has been in, he's impressed me very much, because I've actually seen quite a few Zhilei Zhang fights before his last 2 fights, and I was never impressed with Zhilei Zhang, to be honest. I recall this guy fighting on a top rank card way back when, in like 2015, I think it was, 2015, 2016, and I forget who he fought, but he got dropped by a journeyman in like a 4-rounder, and arguably lost that fight. And ever since then, I've seen him come through. He's been beating a lot of like low-level guys, knocking them out, but I was never particularly impressed. Then the Jerry Forrest fight came, and again he looked good early on in that fight, but he finished that fight terribly and arguably lost. He got a draw against Jerry Forrest, so I kind of assumed when he stepped up, or when he would step up, he'd get beaten. However, that's not the case. He stepped up against Filip Hrgović. In my opinion, he was very unlucky with that decision. I felt he beat Hrgović. And going into this Joyce fight, I was picking Joyce to win, but Zhilei Zhang comes out and puts on a career best performance. Really good performance by Zhilei Zhang. The straight left hand was money for him throughout this fight. Even the southpaw right hook, the southpaw jab, etc. was working as well. And honestly, he put a beating on Joyce. And it will be interesting to see what happens from here. George Warren, Frank Warren's son, he did the post-fight interview, and he said that Frank Warren, Queensberry, they have options on Zhilei Zhang in regards to his next fights, including a rematch clause with Joyce. Me personally, I would rather see Zhilei Zhang continue now. I mean, I don't think he needs to fight Joyce again. It's not like this fight was close. Zhilei Zhang won this fight clearly, decisively, and in dominant fashion. Do we really need to see a rematch? Joyce needs to rebuild. I saw Dillian Whyte in the building. Why not have Dillian Whyte versus Joyce? I think that'll be a good fight for Joyce. But as for Zhilei Zhang, he's nearly 40. He needs to be looking for a title shot, quite frankly. He needs to be looking for a title shot. And, yeah, man, this guy continues to surprise me. He looked very good in this fight and deceptively quick. When he opened up, he low-key showed some good hand speed in there. But yeah, it was a really good performance by Zhilei Zhang, and I'm looking forward to seeing where he goes from here, to be honest. I think he should be aiming for the top of the heavyweight division. But anyway, share your thoughts below. What did you make of this fight? What did you make of Zhilei Zhang's performance? Where does he go from here? And where does Joyce go from here? Would you like to see a rematch, or would you like to see both guys go their own separate ways? Share your thoughts below. Been your guy Delboy. Peace.